If you're a beginner in flower arranging or you want to update your skills, then today's video is showing you how you can do a very traditional triangle using some garden flowers and no foliage. If this is something you'd like to learn, then keep watching today's video. So welcome to today's video. If you haven't been here before, my name is Sharon and I've got a YouTube channel full of exciting tutorials to teach you how to create floral design. Now this YouTube channel started when I realised that there wasn't much training out there for florists and flower arrangers to learn good traditional basic floral design. Now there's lots of videos that show modern techniques or trendy designs that are very fashionable at the moment, but there wasn't a lot of information out there about traditional floral designs. So I started the channel and here we are 4 years later, still producing exciting videos. Today I'm going to look at a very traditional floral design. It's going to be a traditional triangle. If you're a youngster and you're below sort of 30, you might find this design a little bit old-fashioned, but this design is something that is still massively used in all different types of floristry, from shop commercial floristry to wedding designs and to church floral arrangements. So it's not a design to be taken for granted. Now I'm going to use a little vintage container today. You know that I've got a real love for vintage containers, and this is a charity shop find. I could have done this in wire netting, but I know from lots of the comments and feedback that I get that the majority of you want to still learn to arrange in floral foam, and you will find lots of tutorials where I'm using agro wool or fibre flora or just your basic wire netting. Today I'm going to be using a third of a brick of floral foam and I'm going to wedge it into the container. Now with traditional arranging, you always need to have a good inch above the rim of the container for you to be able to get your side placements in. If you're doing more modern designs or those very trendy, fashionable arrangements that we see at the moment in wedding work, then you don't necessarily have to have anything raised above the edge. Today's arrangement doesn't have any foliage, and I'm wondering whether I've maybe challenged myself too much, because I'm so used to arranging with gorgeous garden foliages and florist grade foliages because I'm a commercial florist and I have access to lots of materials. But I know from feedback again that I get that many of you can't access foliage and you can't cut it or you can't find it or it's out of your budget. So I'm going to be really brave today and I'm going to do an arrangement without floral foam, and everything I've got on the table at the moment is from my garden, so I'm really quite excited. We've got limelight hydrangeas, Alchemilla mollis. This one is helenium, and then I'm really excited because I've got some creamy lemon coloured cosmos. It's the first time I've been successful with these, and they're not particularly tall, but they're really lightweight and floaty. And I have told a little bit of a porky because I also have some light blue thistle or eryngium, and this has come from a fellow florist friend's garden. She has a cutting garden. She was due to go on holiday and she wanted to cut this back before she went on holiday. So even though I do have this in the garden, I don't have it in such an abundant supply that I can cut it. So if you are in the UK or you're in a similar temperature zone to where I am, then there are lots of flowers that you can grow throughout the year that you can use in floral design. And if it's interesting to you, then let me know in the comment box and I can do a video on plants that you can buy for the garden that you can use for cutting. And alongside my garden flowers, dahlias, which have come from my cousin's farm. Traditionally they're arable farmers and they grow crops, but this year they've diversified into growing cut flowers. So we'll see those in a little bit. So traditionally this arrangement is going to be a triangle. It can be taller than it is wide, or it can be the same dimensions all the way round. It's a front-facing arrangement, so most of the flowers need to face forward, but you still need to have flowers at the back for weight. And it's an arrangement where all the stems radiate away from the center point. And if you can do a triangle, then you can do every other arrangement, an L shape, an asymmetrical triangle. You can make it bigger and create a pedestal for the church, or you can make it a suitable size for the home. I did mention earlier that the youngsters will probably find this a bit old-fashioned, but Anybody that's around my age is going to love it. So come and join me and let's get some flowers in. Now traditionally an arrangement is twice the height of its container, or at least twice the height. So this is my height. What I've got to think about is making my first flower at least twice the height. But because I have some quite big flowers, this is Hydrangea Limelight, it's quite big and I don't know if I'm going to use them all, but if you think about making a squat short arrangement, this is going to be too big and too dominant. So I'm thinking of making this quite tall, a little bit taller than maybe I would normally go. And I'm going to remove the greenery so that I've got a nice straight piece for the back. If you don't have the same type of flower as I do, you're looking for something small. It's never ever the big flower at the top in a traditional arrangement. You can do big flowers in other arrangements, but not in a traditional design like this. And I'm going to go centre of my foam, 2/3 to the back of the foam, slightly leaning backwards, never forward. So slightly backwards. If you angle it forward, the whole design is going to look like it's balancing over the edge of your container and it's going to fall apart. And that gives me the height. Now you can either go as wide as that to make a wide triangle, or you can go narrower, and I think narrower suits my little container. So I'm going to choose some of the Cosmos because it's a lightweight flower to do my sides, and I don't quite want to go as wide as that, so we'll go a little bit smaller, and I'm going to measure 2 to the same length to create my widths. Now the reason I paused then was because they are slightly different colours. One is more yellowy, one is a bit more cream. So I'm going to see if I've got 2 that are a more similar colour. Otherwise, visually I'm going to have one side that looks a little bit heavier than the other. So they're going to work better. So if you create these the same length, if you cut them the same length rather before you start, you know your width of your arrangement is going to be the same. And if I had foliage, I would do this with foliage first and then I would fill my flowers in after. So I'm coming back in the floral foam, slightly angled forward, and I'm aiming to have them at a similar position on either side. They're going to look like wings. If you've been following me for a while, I like to refer to lots of things as wings. What we don't want to do is end up with 2 arms sticking out that look like gigantic wings. So they need to be incorporated into the arrangement. And if you haven't been following me for a while, then it's possibly time to get you to subscribe to the channel, to hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new tutorial, which is normally on a Sunday afternoon, and then you won't miss out on anything. You'll be able to see everything that I make. Now what I'm doing here again is, you know, can't quite get my words out, but it's a very traditional design that's symmetrical on either side. And I'm balancing off the outline shape with the same material. You don't have to do that. If you haven't got matching pairs, you can make them different on either side. But the whole point of this video is aimed at beginners and those of you who don't understand any rules yet in floral design. So I've created a triangle. Now we need to bring some flowers towards the front to give my arrangement depth, and then I need to add something at the back. So this one is going to come out towards the front. That's a little bit too long. Because the design needs to have a front and a back. It needs to be 3-dimensional. We don't put a flower tucked in here and then your arrangement drop in towards the front. It needs to have a front and a back, height and sides. What does it need? Front, back, height and sides. And we've got a lovely outline there already started. If you don't have the same flower combination as me, that could easily be foliage to create the outline, but it needs to be the smaller flowers. And because I've got one left, I'm going to bring this up to create a bit of height and to evenly spread out that same flower and that same colour combination. And if you don't have flowers that are matching, just try and look at the colour of them and the shape of them, and then try and match them on either side. Or you could make a more informal arrangement where the triangle doesn't match on either side. And maybe I'll take this apart after I've made it and make a more informal triangle with it as well, so that you can see two different styles. And then what I'm going to do with my echinacea, no, it's not echinacea, this is helenium, is I'm going to bring the colour from the top down towards the front, almost like a ball bouncing down the stairs. The colour yellow rocks back and forth all the way down to the front. If you're looking at it from the side, we have a triangle forming from the side. It's not flat, it's not squashed, we got a side. And then with all these little bits, these are the offshoots, they will work to strengthen the outline. Now if you are growing flowers in the garden, you might have an allotment, or if you're like me, you've got a little patch in the garden, then lots of these flowers need to be regularly cut to encourage them to keep growing. If you allow them to go to seed, they won't bring you a second lot of flowers. So keep cutting, keep using them up and enjoy them. And then I'm going to start using a couple of the buds at the back. This is going to give me some depth there and make the arrangement travel, make your eyes rather travel all the way through here to the back, not stopping at that severe right angle. I've just got two little more heads that can tuck in on the back there. And what I'm going to do next, before I overfill the arrangement, when I've still got room and I can still see the foam, I'm going to use the Alchemilla mollis cut down short to help cover my floral foam. Now this is quite hard to do after you've put in all of your flowers, because you bend and snap the stems of the bigger, heavier flowers. Now normally this would be foliage, but the Alchemilla mollis acts as a really good filler flower. This could be gypsophilia, September flower or aster. But before I overfill with my main flowers, I'm going to fill in to cover the floral foam. This will help create recession, which is depth, draws your eye downwards. And it's going to prevent me having to fill in right at the very end with lots of small little bits. So that's the front. I'm going to bring a few more pieces out to the sides and use the rest towards the back. Now if you've not done floral design before, this is the first time you're watching a tutorial, traditionally we have our larger flowers in the centre because they create the focal point and the more dominant area. And then your stems radiate away and you have the smaller flower to the outside. And I always think it's a bit like your body. Your bigger bit is in the middle, the focal point, and then your arms are your smaller, thinner bits that gently recede away. And I'm hoping that's a fairly good description. The little bits of the fatter lower leaf of the Alchemilla mollis works well low down again to cover my foam. And if you don't have the Alchemilla mollis, but you know somebody that does, it self-seeds pretty much everywhere. So just take a clump, dry it off in a paper bag, and then you'll have loads of seeds for the following year. Just sprinkle them over the ground, and before you know it, you can have a lovely little cluster. It self-seeds everywhere, so if you're a neat gardener, I wouldn't suggest you plant it because it's going to go everywhere in all the little nooks and crannies. From the camera angle, that probably looks like a lot of the foam is covered, but there's still a lot of it visible from where I'm standing. But hopefully by the time I've used all of my flowers, that will be covered. Now this is a hydrangea called Limelight. When it starts, it's a beautiful limey green, and then as it matures, it turns to a more white colour. And this one is going to come up towards the top of my arrangement, staggered down slightly so that the heads are getting bigger and bigger as we come to the focal point. One of the benefits of the hydrangea head is that you can cut the side shoots off quite easily, I'll use these lower down. But if you feel the head is too big, just trim it off slightly and make a more manageable size head. And what I'm going to do is create what we call a focal line. Now this is probably done more in floristry than it is in traditional flower arranging, but I'm bringing a visually dominant flower down to the front of the arrangement. I think I'm going to thin that one off as well. I think I'm going to do it a little bit more. And the reason I'm doing this is because I've got some quite big dahlias coming soon. What I've done is I've created what we call a visual line down the front. It's a big flower. What we don't want to do is put the big flower over here on the end, because it draws your eye out to the edge, not towards the centre. So that looks better there. Again, I've brought it out towards the front because it's going to create that three-dimensional effect. And the little bits of hydrangea that I cut off, I can tuck in there at the back, and I can put some really close to the foam, because that's going to create recession. It's going to draw your eye inwards and make the arrangement look like it's got different layers. We don't want to arrange everything in exactly the same position. Flowers down low work really well at hiding the foam and creating depth. And always take a little step back every now and again and see what your arrangement looks like. The pretty blue thistle is going to work nicely on the outside edge. A lovely yellow or lemony yellow colour combination I think is so pretty. I think yellow and blue is maybe one of my favourite colours. It's very calming and very relaxing. And what I'm going to do with each little piece is cut it so that it's got a better shape. This shape of this flower here, I'm just going to pop it in the other camera. You can see it there. It's angled in two different places, so your eye doesn't know where to go. But by removing the side shoot, you now have a more linear shaped flower to draw your eye out to the outside. And then I can thicken it up by adding back in the shorter pieces that I cut off just now. So it's a much better shape. So again, with this one, that's really heavy. There's a lot going on in that. Let's just get that in that camera. There's a lot going on in there. It's bushy, it's confusing. Your eye is going all over the shop. So by cutting off some side shoots, we make a more visually pleasing flower head, and this is going to work up towards the top. And if you've got sprays like this, so spray chrysanths, spray carnations, lisianthus, they all work really well by being cut down. It's a far more economical way of arranging flowers rather than using the flower on its full head. So anything little can tuck in underneath the foam, and anything that's a little bit longer can come towards the end. And I'm also going to bring some material towards the back. Now, if you're arranging flowers on a budget and you don't have enough spare flowers to fill the back area in, so this is the back area here, you still have to cover your floral foam because the water will evaporate away if you don't cover it. Invest in maybe an artificial flower or some moss or some big leaves in the back there, and it will help prevent that foam from drying out. It's not always possible to use your best quality flowers at the back. Right, so we got quite a nice summery meadow style arrangement. Now I'm going to add in some dahlias, and I'm going to tuck them in, just reinforcing that shape that I've already created. I'm quite happy at this stage that the majority of my floral foam is covered, so now it's my opportunity to put in my really beautiful dahlias. Now, I normally moan on this channel that it's raining because Wales is a very wet country, but we are actually having a little bit of a heat wave. So these dahlias have been very well conditioned. They've been in the studio for probably about a week now. So they're starting to not look their best, but look at those, and they're like little fried eggs. And the smaller ones are gonna reinforce the outline. The bigger ones are gonna come towards the center. And any little buds I've got are also going to work quite nicely on the outside. So look at that one, isn't that lovely? Now the head is quite heavy, so it is swinging around quite a lot, but once it's tucked in there and in amongst some other flowers, it's going to sit in pride of place. So we've got 2 on the outside and 1 there in the middle. And what I don't want to do is to place this one in directly opposite the one that I've placed in already, because I'm going to get those visual headlights that we don't want. So if you think about a car coming towards you up a road and you've got symmetrical headlights on either side, we don't want to do that in flower arranging. We want to make it look more natural and place them at different levels, so there's slightly different heights there on either side. I've got lots of buds. Now that one there has lost the white petals, but the yellow centre is still quite attractive, and that's going to work nicely here on the outside of my arrangement. And what I'm looking to do now is just to reinforce the outline with the smaller flowers, so any buds, and then add the larger flowers towards the centre. I'm going to work the little buds in first and then grab myself a few more of the open dahlias for the middle. Remember that your design is to be viewed from all different sides, so don't face your flowers forward. You should see flowers angled towards the side, left and right. Some should be facing the ceiling, some should be facing slightly downwards. Don't turn everything in that really artificial position, because it doesn't look nice in a floral design. I've been keeping this smaller head to one side so that I can use that at the higher position. If we just turn that around, we've got the colour of the white hydrangea down the bottom. Now what I need to do is to bring that colour a little bit higher up, and there's quite a big gap between my top flower and this section here, so I need to find something that's going to go in that area there. I've been concentrating on filling the bottom part and I've forgotten about that top section. Luckily I have one of this style of dahlia, and I'm not a dahlia expert, so other than the spiky variety that I know are cactus dahlia, I'm not sure of the different variety names for these, but that's lifted up the height a bit. I maybe need to look for something to go a bit higher again, but what I don't want to do is to put one of these really big heads in, because that takes your eye up towards the top instead of bringing it down into where the focal point of the arrangement is. So these are just delightful. They definitely look a little bit like fried eggs. Now when I'm pushing flowers into the foam, I'm starting now to get a bit of resistance, and that's normally an indication to stop trying to force any more flowers in. I do have a couple of little buds which I'm going to add in to create some height. I think we also need a little bit of a taller one, and this could be greenery. If you have access to greenery, you could put greenery here at the back. And traditionally, if you've been to a traditional flower arranging course, they quite often get you to put a very severe straight piece of foliage at the back, and it's not always needed. I have a few buds left, and these are going to look nice just draping over the front of that container. And I really don't think I can do any more with that arrangement. I really don't want to keep adding flowers, because then I'm at risk of snapping the stems as I try to force them into the foam. And if you've got too many flowers pushed into a small block of foam, then they won't have enough water source to keep them alive. So always remember, if you're doing a big arrangement, you need to have a bigger piece of foam to have enough water to keep all those fresh flowers alive. I have a little bed on the table, and I've got a perfect spot just underneath that bigger dahlia, and I'm really quite pleased how that's turned out. If that doesn't say summertime meadow to you, then I don't quite know what to say. It's a gorgeous, very traditional arrangement where we have height and width to create that triangular shape. It's a less formal arrangement because we've got those soft informal flowers in there, like the lime green Alchemilla mollis, and we haven't got such big flowers in it to create a very formal look. So today's video is aimed more at total beginners, and I've gone through some more basic rules. But if you don't like the long step-by-step tutorials, then there are loads of other videos here on the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and don't forget that I have that private Facebook group, Sharon's Innovations group, that you can join me on, and you can share photos, ask questions, and find some friends who also love floral design. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, then please do so. Hit that notification bell to be told every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time, and goodbye for now.